General Calixa stood at the viewport of her command vessel, her tall, angular silhouette cast in shadow against the burning glow of Nova Haven below. The human colony, small but surprisingly resilient, had managed to withstand 3 days of orbital bombardment. It was annoying. Her scaled skin, iridescent in shades of deep purple and black, caught the reflected firelight as she turned to her lieutenant. "Prepare my shuttle," she ordered, her voice carrying the distinct metallic resonance of the Draxian elite. "I will assess the situation personally." Lieutenant Morden bowed deeply. "The human resistance is nearly broken, Supreme General. Is your presence truly necessary?" Calix's silver eyes narrowed. The last officer who questioned her decisions had been spaced without ceremony. "When the Draxian Empire commits to conquest, Lieutenant, we do not leave remnants. I sense something unusual about this colony's defenses. Their strategy is too coherent for isolated humans." Within the hour, Calix's armored form strode through the smoking ruins of Nova Haven's central command complex. The Draxian shock troops had captured the facility largely intact, another oddity. Typically, humans fought until their structures collapsed around them. "Bring me their strategist," she commanded. Her soldiers returned with a single human male. He appeared unremarkable average height, with dark hair touched by silver at the temples and eyes of an unusual amber color. He wore no uniform, only simple dark clothing. Most striking was his expression, not terror, not defiance, but calm awareness. "You are responsible for Nova Haven's defense." Calixa circled him slowly, studying this curious specimen. "I am Elian Frost." His voice was deeper than she expected, steady. "I advised on certain matters. You've delayed the inevitable. Why not surrender immediately? It would have saved lives." The human's mouth curved slightly. "Perhaps I wanted to meet you, General Calixa." Her hand flew to the ceremonial blade at her hip. "How do you know my name?" "The same way I know the Draxian Empire has conquered 37 worlds in 16 stellar cycles. The same way I know your people value directness and despise equivocation." Elian met her gaze without flinching. "I've studied you extensively." Calixa felt a strange sensation, not quite discomfort, something more akin to curiosity. Most beings cowered before her, this human spoke as though they were equals. "Take him to my shuttle," she ordered her guards. "Secure the remaining resistance leaders." In her private interrogation chamber aboard the command ship, Calixa dismissed her guards. The human sat across from her, unbound yet making no attempt to escape. "You understand that I will extract everything you know," she stated, activating her neural scanner. "Then I will complete the conquest of this world." "I understand you believe that's your only option," Elian replied. "But I wonder, General, in all your conquests, have you ever found something worth preserving?" The scanner hummed between them, but Calixa found herself hesitating to apply it. "Preservation is weakness. The Draxian way is strength through dominance. Yet you delayed your final assault to meet me. You're curious." His amber eyes seemed to see through her armored exterior. "That suggests an openness your empire might not approve of." For the first time in decades of warfare, Calixa felt exposed. Not by threat or force, but by simple observation. The human had indeed studied her people, perhaps too well. "The Draxian Empire has existed for 10,000 years because we eliminate threats," she said, leaning forward. "What makes you think you're not one?" Elian's expression remained serene. "Because I'm offering you something no conquered world ever has." "And what is that?" "Understanding," he folded his hands, "not just of humans but of yourself." Calix's translator must have malfunctioned. No conquered species had ever spoken to her this way. She should execute him immediately for his presumption. Yet. "You have one cycle to prove your value," she said finally, "or I will personally lead the attack on your remaining settlements." As she left the chamber, Calixa felt strangely unsettled. The final conquest of Nova Haven could wait one more day. After all, victory was inevitable, wasn't it? Calixa paced the length of her private quarters, the neural data from her preliminary scans of the human projected in holographic form before her. Elian Frost was anomalous. His brain patterns showed remarkable activity in regions associated with strategic thinking and empathic perception. Most intriguing were the extensive neural pathways dedicated to language acquisition, specifically Draxian dialects. The door chimed. "Enter," she commanded. Lieutenant Morden appeared, saluting with a fist to his armored chest. "Supreme General, the fleet awaits your order to begin the final bombardment. The troops are prepared for ground assault at your command." Calixa waved a dismissive hand. "Maintain orbital positions. I require additional intelligence from the prisoner." "General," Morden's ridge scales flared in barely concealed surprise. The War Council expects Nova Haven's surrender transmission by the next cycle. Then the War Council will wait, she snapped. I sense deeper complexities that require investigation. After Morden's reluctant departure, Calixa ordered Elian brought to her strategic chamber, a breach of protocol that would have shocked her superiors. The room contained detailed holographic models of Nova Haven's defenses, along with transmission intercepts and tactical simulations. When Elian entered, his eyes immediately scanned the displays with professional interest rather than fear. Your defensive pattern on the Eastern Peninsula, Calixa said without preamble, gesturing to a holographic representation. It was peculiar, asymmetrical, yet effective. My commanders believed it was desperation. I think it was intentional. Elian smiled slightly. The Draxian military doctrine values symmetry and overwhelming force. I simply created something your tactical algorithms wouldn't anticipate. How do you know our tactical algorithms? She circled him slowly. I was a xenocultural professor before Nova Haven was isolated, he explained. I specialized in Draxian history and military development. Your people have fascinating patterns, beautiful in their precision, but... But what? She demanded. Predictable to those who understand the underlying philosophy. In any other circumstance, such words would be the human's last. Instead, Calixa felt a strange current of respect. Show me, she challenged, manipulating the hologram to display a different sector. For hours, they analyzed battles and strategies. Elian demonstrated an understanding of Draxian tactical philosophy that rivaled her own War College instructors. More disturbingly, he accurately predicted variations she might employ. Your empire conquers because it must, Elian said as darkness fell. The hierarchical structure requires constant expansion to maintain stability. Calixa stiffened, we conquer because we are superior. Is that why you've delayed the final assault? His amber eyes held hers. Because you're following doctrine or questioning it? The question lingered between them, dangerous and electric. Calixa found herself standing closer to him than protocol permitted. You should fear me, she said, her voice lower than intended. Fear obscures understanding, Elian replied, and I've spent too long trying to understand you to waste energy on fear. Something in his tone shifted the atmosphere. No longer simply general and prisoner, they stood as two beings seeing each other with uncomfortable clarity. Tomorrow, Calixa said, suddenly aware of their proximity, you will explain how Nova Haven knew we were coming. No isolated human colony possesses such intelligence. As guards escorted him out, Elian glanced back. Perhaps I'll explain why I surrendered myself so readily. Alone, Calixa accessed her private communications terminal, canceled the scheduled attack briefing, and ordered another day of surveillance. She told herself it was strategic necessity. The human clearly possessed valuable intelligence. But as she reviewed the recording of their interaction, she found herself pausing on the moment his eyes had met hers without fear or hatred. In thousands of conquests, she had never encountered such a gaze. It was unsettling. This hesitation dishonors the Empire. Commander Vex slammed his armored fist against the tactical table. The senior officers of Calix's fleet had gathered for what should have been a victory celebration, not a strategy debate. 3 days since capturing their command center, and still we delay. Calixa remained motionless, her silver eyes narrowed at the insubordination. You question my judgment, Commander. The chamber fell silent. Even Vex, ambitious and decorated, knew the danger in challenging her directly. I question the influence of the human, he said finally, scales flaring along his neck. The troops whisper that you spend hours alone with him, that you've postponed transmissions to the War Council. The human possesses intelligence critical to our campaign, Calixa replied, her voice dangerously calm. I extract it thoroughly before our final assault. Lieutenant Morden shifted uncomfortably. Supreme General, regulations mandate immediate conquest once resistance leadership is captured. The War Council has requested status updates 3 times now. I am aware of regulations, Lieutenant. Calixa rose to her full height, towering over her officers. You are dismissed, all of you. After they departed, she activated privacy protocols and summoned Elian to her private chambers, no longer even maintaining the pretense of formal interrogation. He arrived escorted by her personal guard, appearing more composed than ever. Your officers disagree with your tactics, he observed as she dismissed the guards. Calixa turned to him sharply. How could you know that? Your posture, the tension in your movements. He moved toward the viewport, gazing at the planet below. The Draxian elite express anger through microcontractions of the dorsal ridge. You've studied our physiological responses as well. She found herself drawn closer to him. I've studied everything about your people. He turned, and suddenly the space between them felt charged with something beyond strategic interest, including what your histories don't tell. And what is that? Her voice had softened without her permission. That the Draxian Empire was once a collection of peaceful scholarly worlds. That conquest became your way only after the resource collapse of the Fifth Dynasty. Calixa inhaled sharply. Few even among her own people knew that history. Where did you learn this? From fragments, ancient texts, architectural remains. His hand gestured to her ceremonial blade. Even that weapon you carry, it bears the etching of the scholar poets, not warriors. She unconsciously touched the hilt of her blade. These matters are irrelevant to our current campaign. Are they? Your empire conquers because it fears scarcity, emotional as well as material. Elian's eyes held a warmth that made her scales flush with heat. Yet here you are delaying conquest to talk. Something dangerous was happening. Calixa recognized it but couldn't seem to stop it. Each conversation with this human peeled away layers of certainty she had built over centuries of military service. What did you mean yesterday, she asked, about surrendering yourself readily? Elian smiled. I knew the only way to save Nova Haven was to meet you, to help you remember what your people once were. And how would you accomplish that? Despite herself, she had moved closer. By showing you what you've been conquering isn't weakness. His hand lifted, hovering near but not touching her face, a gesture so intimate it shocked her. It's connection. The proximity alarm cut through the moment. Lieutenant Morden's voice came through the communication system. General, unauthorized transmissions detected from the command deck to the War Council. Commander Vex has. The transmission cut off abruptly. Calix's tactical instincts surged back. Return to your holding cell, she ordered Elian. My guards will secure you. As they separated, Elian caught her gaze. They've reported your delay, your perceived weakness. Oh yes. What will you do? The question hung between them as the ship's alert system began to wail. For the first time in her long military career, Calixa was uncertain. What I must, she replied, drawing her ceremonial blade. But as she strode toward the command deck to confront her mutinous officer, she knew something fundamental had changed. The conquest of Nova Haven was no longer inevitable, because she no longer desired it. The command deck was in chaos when Calixa arrived. Commander Vex stood at the central tactical station, surrounded by a contingent of loyal officers. The moment she entered, weapons trained on her, an act of treason unprecedented in the history of the Draxian fleet. By order of the War Council, Vex announced, his voice amplified throughout the ship. General Calixa is relieved of command for dereliction of duty and suspected compromise by enemy influence. Calix's hand remained on her blade, but she did not draw it. The War Council has no authority to remove me without formal tribunal. The tribunal will occur after we complete our mission, Vex replied coldly. I have been authorized to assume command and conclude the conquest of Nova Haven immediately. On the tactical display, Calixa saw her fleet repositioning for the final assault. Ground troops were boarding landing craft. The annihilation of Nova Haven and Elian's people would commence within minutes. You risk civil conflict, she warned, addressing the officers who still hesitated. My loyal commanders will not accept this mutiny. They will when they learn of your private meetings with the human prisoner, Vex countered. How you've kept him in your personal chambers, how you've delayed our victory while speaking of ancient history and forgotten philosophies. The accusations hung in the air, damning in their partial truth. Calixa surveyed the command deck. Half the officers appeared conflicted, the other half committed to Vex's coup. Take the general to the brig, Vex ordered. We'll deal with her after the conquest. As guards approached, Calixa made her decision. With lightning speed, she activated her neural implant's emergency override, locking down the weapons system shipwide. Alarms blared. What have you done? Vex demanded. Prevented a massacre, she replied, drawing her blade at last. And now we will settle this as true Draxians with honor, not treachery. The next moments passed in blur of motion. Calixa moved with the precision that had made her legendary, disarming 3 guards without killing them. When Vex attacked, she met him blow for blow, their combat training evenly matched. The human has corrupted you, Vex hissed as they locked weapons. He reminded me of what we were, she countered, before endless conquest became our only purpose. With a decisive maneuver, she disarmed him, her blade at his throat. The command deck fell silent. I am still Supreme General, she announced. Those loyal to me secure Commander Vex and his conspirators. The rest of you return to your stations. After restoring order, Calixa rushed to the detention level, finding chaos there as well. During the coup attempt, security protocols had failed. Elian's cell stood empty. She found him in a transport bay, surrounded by her loyal guards. When their eyes met across the chamber, something unspoken passed between them. "Your commander attempted a coup," he said, "to force the attack on Nova Haven." "Oh yes, and you stopped him." Calixa approached slowly. "I did." For a moment, they stood facing each other, neither speaking. Then Calixa did something no supreme general had ever done in the history of the Draxian Empire. She dismissed her guards, leaving herself alone with a prisoner. "Why?" Elian asked when they had departed. "Because you were right," she admitted, the words feeling like a transgression. "I no longer desire conquest, at least not as I once did." Elian stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his human form. "What do you desire, Calixa?" The use of her name without title should have been an insult. Instead, it felt like an intimate truth. "Something I never knew existed," she answered, her scaled hand rising to touch his face, the first voluntary contact she had initiated with any being in decades. Understanding, connection. His hand covered hers, warm against her cool scales, even between species so different. "Perhaps because we are different," the realization came as she spoke it, "your perspective changes mine." Their faces drew closer, hesitant, exploring impossible territory. When their lips met, it was gentle, questioning, a first contact of a different kind. Calixa had conquered worlds but never surrendered herself to such vulnerability. As they separated, emergency communications chimed. Lieutenant Morden's voice was urgent. "General, the War Council demands immediate response. They've authorized the planetary assault directly." Elian's eyes held hers. "What will you do now?" "Something unprecedented," she replied, her decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. "Something that will change everything." The Great Hall of Nova Haven's Central Plaza had been transformed. Where battle damage had scarred the walls days before, now hung the banners of both the Draxian Empire and the human colony. Representatives from both sides filled the chamber, tension electrifying the air. Never before had the Empire negotiated with a world marked for conquest. Calixa entered wearing full ceremonial armor, her scaled skin gleaming under the lights. The Draxian contingent, those officers who had remained loyal despite the unprecedented nature of her orders, stood rigid with uncertainty. The humans watched with cautious hope, Elian among their leadership council. "This assembly violates all protocols of the Empire," Calixa began, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "For 10,000 years, the Draxian way has been domination, conquest, absorption." She moved to the center of the chamber where all could see her. "I have led 37 campaigns, conquered worlds across 3 sectors, never questioned our purpose or our methods." Her silver eyes found Elian's across the room. "Until now." Murmurs rippled through both delegations. Behind her, she could sense the discomfort of her officers. "The War Council has demanded I complete this conquest or face execution for treason." Calixa let this statement hang in the air. "I have chosen a third path." With deliberate slowness, she removed her command insignia and placed it on the ground before her. Then, in a motion that sent shock waves through the Draxian ranks, she knelt, one knee touching the floor, her head bowed. The gasps from her own people were audible. No supreme general had ever knelt before a conquered species. It was unthinkable. "I kneel not in defeat," she clarified, her voice strong despite her posture. "I kneel in recognition, recognition that the Draxian path of endless conquest will ultimately lead to our destruction, recognition that there is strength in connection, not just domination." Elian stepped forward from among the human delegation, his expression solemn yet warm. "The human Elian Frost helped me remember what the Empire once was, scholars, philosophers, builders." Calixa raised her head. "What we might become again." The silence in the hall was profound as Elian approached and stood before her kneeling form. "Nova Haven accepts your recognition," he said formally, then extended his hand to her, an invitation to rise. As she took his hand and stood, something shifted in the room's energy. Not submission but partnership, not conquest but possibility. "The War Council will send others," warned Lieutenant Morden from the Draxian delegation. "Yes," Calixa acknowledged, "which is why I have transmitted evidence of an ancient truth to every world in the Empire, that we were not always conquerors, that there is another way." She turned to face both delegations. "I propose an alliance. Nova Haven will remain independent but under Draxian protection. In exchange, your scholars will help us recover our forgotten knowledge. Together, we will demonstrate an alternative to endless war. As the formal negotiations began, Calixa and Aeolian stepped into a quiet alcove momentarily alone. The Empire may execute you for this, Aeolian said softly, his fingers intertwining with hers in the shadow where none could see. Perhaps, but they must find me first. Her scaled lips curved in a smile unfamiliar to her face. I find I have much to learn about human cultures, their art, their philosophy, she paused, their capacity for connection. He stepped closer. It won't be easy, our physiologies, our cultures. Nothing worthwhile is easy, Aeolian Frost. She touched his face, still marveling at the strange warmth of human skin. You showed me that when you faced me without fear. Their lips met again, no longer tentative but certain, sealed with the knowledge that they were charting unmapped territory together. When they parted, Calixa saw in his eyes the same revelation she felt, that true strength sometimes required surrender. Later, as the alliance treaty was formalized, Calixa stood beside Aeolian before both their peoples. Her kneeling had not been defeat but transformation, not just of herself but potentially of an empire. We begin something unprecedented today, she addressed the assembly. Not conquest but cooperation, not subjugation but strength through diversity. As she spoke the formal words of treaty, her hand found Aeolian's beside her. Beyond the political alliance being forged, they had discovered a more personal one, proof that connection could transcend the boundaries of worlds, of species, of histories. For the first time in her long military career, General Calixa looked toward the future with something other than the certainty of conquest. She looked toward it with hope.